Hello, welcome to the Module 2 video. First of all, let's take a look at what you will learn about in Module 2. The importance of using credible and relevant resources to support your topic, how to understand the role of bias in sources and how to connect bias to its impact on the audience, how to practice working with APA citation style, and the importance of including diverse perspectives in your research. You should get in the habit of always starting off by reading the learning objectives for each module, module overview, and then specifically the bullet points about what you will learn about in the module and why you will learn about it. That will help you to understand what the focus is, what the purpose is for this particular module. Finally, you should always read Tips for Success because there will be items in there that will help you get through the module successfully. And then the module at a glance, which is a step-by-step procedure through the module. It can be used not only to help you have a path to work through the module, but also as a checklist when you think you're finished with the module to go back and make sure that you've actually done everything that you needed to do in the module. That information is then followed by the Module 2 guide. Each of the modules will have a guide page, and it will expand on the information that was on the first page. Where those were bullet points and gave you short descriptions, this Module 2 guide page will then expand on that information and give you more details. First of all, we are focusing on beginning the research process in this module. And so we worked on developing potential research questions in the last module, Module 1. And we're taking the next step in Module 2 by actually putting those research questions to work. One of the things you'll be doing is choosing which research question you want to focus on, and then doing some preliminary research to begin actually expanding your knowledge base about your topic. So putting your research question to work is a way to focus, a way to develop keywords. And this paragraph will give you some information about using keywords, how to develop keywords from your research question. So that's very important information for you to have in order to start doing your actual research. Using sources to persuade, why do we need to have sources? Isn't your argument just enough to convince people? Unfortunately, when we're doing academic writing, you need to back your reasoning up with credible research. It has more impact with your audience, as well as indicates that you have done the work behind your argument to know everything you can about that particular topic, that debatable issue, as well as to be able to bring in scholarly research that supports your various supporting points. Identifying bias, it's important that we start to look at what research we do gather and have ways to evaluate it. So something to consider is, are they biased, or is there a lack of bias shown in the articles that you're looking at? Bias is simply the kinds of ideas that we come to any topic with that are from our own experience. So how we grew up, what we've been exposed to in our past education, our life experiences, etc. All of those shape how we look at things, whether we realize it consciously or not. And there will be some additional information on the resources page this time to help you work through your understanding of how bias affects you personally as a writer and researcher, and how it affects your audience's argument, the understanding of your argument. Also, information about generative AI and bias. Even though we like to think that everything that's on the computer on the internet is 100% true, that is not the case. And we have to have tools to help us search through or sort through all of that information, but we also have to develop tools ourselves in understanding how that information can be biased, how it can be or not be credible, and how we can actually tell, use our own critical thinking skills to determine whether or not this information, whether it's from generative AI or other sources, whether or not it's credible and will actually have impact with our audience. Next in our module is the required resources page, and again, this is where we have the reading assignments with our e-textbook as well as other materials. And this reading list starts off with readings in the e-textbook, Chapter 3. There is always going to be a little summary paragraph, which is a good thing to read before, because then it will help you pay attention to what's important in that chapter in terms of what it is you want to be able to comprehend and remember. Reading these questions will also help you flag things that will be important information for you to have as we work through this module. So how do you tailor your writing to your audience? How do you define who your readers should be? This is a chapter on audience and the importance of considering your audience, determining an audience so that you can tailor your writing to that particular audience. The second e-textbook reading is Chapter 23, and this is a chapter that focuses on the importance of having credible resources and by learning how to navigate your library. Additionally, the chapter has reminders for the importance of diversity in research, avoiding outdated sources. We know that because of the internet, things are popping up daily, hourly, and so you want to always have the most current information, so the date of the information being published or on the internet is extremely important. The questions that you need to focus on: how do you include diverse perspectives in your research? Why is that important? Why is gathering research from reputable sources important? Again, that's connected to your audience. If you want to have the strongest argument possible, then you need to have the strongest, most credible research backing you up. Finally, in the e-textbook, responding to alternative views, why do we need to consider opposing viewpoints? One of the requirements for your topic choice in Module 1 was that it be a debatable issue, which meant that it had to have at least 2 points of view, 2 sides, 2 ways of looking at that particular issue. Otherwise, it's not debatable. If everybody agrees, then it's not debatable. So we need to, as researchers, we need to look at both sides so that we're fully informed on the issue and are better able to address the opposing viewpoints and refute or rebut those in our argument. So again, the questions: who is your audience and how do you want to impact this audience? It's important that you consider which opposing views will have the most impact with your audience. Should you focus on change within the system or changing the system? Again, that's a question that will have more information from the reading itself. Then we have several videos that are really important for this module as well as for the rest of the course. And academic writing in general. The first one is writing for your audience. And these are all YouTube videos, so if there is an ad at the beginning, you just skip the ad and go on to the information. These are relatively short videos, but they really do a good job of bringing the information that you've just read in the textbook to some life. They always have good diagrams, good pictures, and as well as bullet points to kind of condense and make the information a little bit more palatable. So be sure that you're doing both the textbook readings and the videos. Writing for your audience is important to consider because you're not just writing to the instructor or your classmates, you're actually writing to an audience who would have interest or investment in your particular debatable issue. So that's the first one. The second video is narrow your topic with the research cycle. And again, it's a YouTube video that's created by Southern New Hampshire. How can exploratory research help me to do the following? Select my topic, refine my topic, and shape my paper's thesis. We probably haven't thought so much about research on that level. Last week, when we explored the potential debatable issue that you were going to focus on, you may not have thought about, other than reading the article that was listed on the project resources page, how those were helping you to select your topic, refine it, and then shape your paper's thesis. But as we move forward in this module and future modules, we'll use the research more to do that. So this video does a good job of making that more detailed. Then there's a video on what is bias. This is more detailed information about what bias is, how we get to have bias, how bias can help us evaluate research that we do, and whether or not it's something that we want to use in presenting an argument in a written form. The next one is a library resource. It's called the SIFT method, and if you click on the link, it takes you to a web page that's part of the library. And as you'll notice here on the left, we have the SIFT method, and that's the focus that we're looking at here. We also have some other tools that can be used for evaluating sources, as well as some information specifically on evaluating sources. What we want to do for this assignment is to read about SIFT, and then watch this video evaluating sources using the SIFT method. It will give you detailed information about the steps and the focuses that are used in this method for evaluating resources. It's so helpful to have a tool like this to use when you're trying to decide whether or not a resource is credible, whether it's relevant, whether it's something that you can actually use to support your argument. Otherwise, you're going to feel really overwhelmed by how do I judge this? How do I know whether or not it's useful? How do I know whether it's considered academically credible? So a tool like this is really, really important. The next one is the topic selection funnel. And again, it's a handout. If you just click on it, it's a diagram that helps you to look at a topic and then narrow it and choose it in such a way and funnel it in such a way that it becomes more specific and more detailed, which helps you to develop a research question that then can be used in your research, keeping your topic from being too broad or too narrow. So again, this is a helpful one to take a look at in this module. Then the additional support materials, they say it's optional, but actually it's not. This chapter in the textbook takes you through APA documentation and format. Let's go ahead and click on it. APA, or the American Psychological Association citation style, is used in many social sciences, and it is the required citation system to be used for this course. There are other citation systems, but for this course, you will be using APA. And so it's important that you know what we mean by APA citation, as well as how to actually write citations. Citations are simply giving credit to the original source of the research. So in our paper, you'll be required to use quotes or paraphrases and then give credit to the original source. And there's a way, an accepted way to do that, and that's what this chapter covers. It shows you it explains both why we do it, as well as gives details on how to do it, and also examples. And I find the examples to be the most important part of understanding the citation system. Being able to know, okay, this is what it should look like in my paper, and you'll see that by actually seeing the samples that are included in the readings. The most important thing about doing this reading is that you consider it as a resource that you're going to return to. No one can possibly memorize everything there is to know about citing in APA style. So what we have to do instead is have a resource that we can go to look up our particular situation. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of ways that things need to be cited depending on what that resource is, whether it's a book, a journal, an article, a video, etc. There's different ways for each of those to be correctly cited. And it's your job as the writer to cite things correctly. Otherwise, you begin to have issues with plagiarism, which is a really serious problem with academic writing. If you are not sure how to cite, you need to be able to go to this resource and look at the examples and determine whether or not you're doing it correctly. There are also other resources with the library, as well as the resources in academic support. This is one of the headings at the top of our course webpage. If you click on academic support, it'll take you to their webpage, and you'll see that there's all kinds of different help here. 24/7 drop-in tutoring, one-on-one support that you can schedule, written feedback, where you can turn your writing in, have somebody give you feedback, workshops, other resources, including handouts. And one of those areas that they help with a lot is citation. So if you haven't looked at this web page, explored it, I strongly encourage you to do so now. Being aware of the help that's available to you is really important so that you're more likely to use that help when you begin to need it. And again, samples are really, really helpful when using citation. So the sample APA pages are extremely helpful. So what you have here is an annotated, which just means there's comments on the right and left sides and the margins. And it shows you a complete paper using APA format and APA citation. So this is what you'll want to go to when you're considering, well, how do I format my essay when the time comes? How do I do a references page, etc. So this is an example that will help you visualize what exactly it is you're shooting for. Next, we have the first assignment, 2-1 discussion focused on diverse perspectives. And as always, there are two parts to the discussion. There's an initial post due by midnight Thursday, and then two follow-up responses to your classmates due by midnight Sunday. Be sure that you read all the information and that you follow the directions carefully. Your initial post should include all 5 of these things. Each of the questions, for instance, number 4, has more than one question. So when it asks you what different perspectives are represented in these two sources, that's one question to answer, but it's followed by which voices are present in these sources and how do the voices differ. That question needs to be answered as well. There's an example here, so you have that to work with, but make sure that you're answering all of the questions in each of these either questions or tasks. Make sure that you're doing everything. This is also true for the response post. You need to provide the information that's asked for. You don't want general responses because that's not really helpful and that's not focused on the topics for this module. So follow the instructions so that you are sure that you're providing exactly what's asked for. The reason that you want to have that focus is that the module does focus on a particular aspect of the writing process that we're learning and practicing. And so the discussions help us to explore that topic further, as well as applying some critical thinking, not only in your initial post, but also in your response post. I will ask you a question. You're only earning points for the initial post and the 2 response posts, but I will ask you a question or give you a task to do in an effort to continue the conversation, to deepen the conversation throughout the week. So be sure that you always check back on your initial post, not only to see response posts from your fellow classmates, but also to see what the question or task is that I have given you. Next, we have the second assignment for Module 2, 2-2 Project Proposal, the Research Process. As with all assignments, you need to first click on Guidelines and Rubric to take you to the details for the assignment. And here we have them. You may be tempted to just read the overview and then do the assignment. I recommend you not do that. These assignments are set up with very detailed instructions in order to present exactly what you need to submit. So they're not general suggestions, they're specific suggestions. And when you get to reading the directions, always consider, okay, there's 3 things here. So there are 3 tasks that I need to complete before I submit. Are there any tasks that have A, B, C kinds of things underneath them? Those are subtasks. If so, be sure that you're doing all of these things. It's also important for you to think about how you're responding on the page itself. How are you organizing your response? It should be easy for the instructor to figure out which of your paragraphs are responding to which question or task. What I'm hoping not to see in any submission or in any initial post in the discussion or response post in the discussion is one long paragraph. It not only makes it difficult for me to read as the person doing the assessment, but it also makes it difficult for your classmates to read when they're in a discussion with you. So organize your information in your submissions and your discussion posts into paragraphs. So in this case, we've got 3 things that you're supposed to present. So each of those could be a paragraph. Under number 2, you could possibly have 3 paragraphs, one for each, A, B, and C. Your job as a writer is always to make information easily available to your reader. And that's done by having paragraphs that begin with topic sentences. Topic sentences are just sentences that tell the reader what the paragraph is going to be about. Often when you're doing responses like this particular assignment, you can use keywords from the question or the task itself to make that topic sentence. And then finally we have the what to submit information. 1 to 2 page Microsoft Word document. It's important that they be Word documents. It needs to be 12-point Times New Roman, double-spaced, 1-inch margins. If you have to cite sources, they need to be in APA style. They do not need to be 100% correct APA style for this assignment, but you do need to make an attempt at citation to indicate that you understand that when you're using outside sources, referring to outside sources in your own writing, that there does need to be some kind of citation. In the future, it'll be more important and it'll be part of the assignment for you to have more correct APA style. But for this particular assignment, 100% correct APA is not the goal. Finally, reading the grading rubric to understand exactly how you're going to be assessed. I always suggest that you read the column that meets expectations. Notice that the criteria in the left column match the directions criteria, research question, topic, sources, and then always clear communication. Are you presenting the information in a way that clearly communicates and that is organized to make that information easily accessible? By reading the meets expectations column, you have a description of exactly what your submission needs to be doing in order to earn 100% of the points. For instance, in the research question, it explains why the question was selected and describes any further revisions made, including the reasons for those changes. So there's several things that need to happen here when you respond to the research question in the directions. First of all, explaining why that particular question was selected. Why did you pick that one over the other ones, or the other one that you used in Module 1? Describe any further revisions that were made. Did you change it somewhat between Module 1 and Module 2? And why? Why did you change it? Did you make it more focused? Did you switch topics? What did you do? You need to explain that as well. So each of the descriptions just in detail describes what your response should include to meet the meets expectations grading category and earn 100% of the points. And I believe all of you were able to return to the assignment page and upload your submission for grading purposes last week. So just a reminder that this is the page that you return to. And then there is one more page in each module, and I don't think I took the time to look at it last week. The look ahead, how to do well in the next module. This one is important to just get you started thinking about how do the modules connect to each other? How do they build on each other? In my announcements and usually in the information in the module, it talks about how things that you're doing in this module connect to what you've already done and why that's important, how that connection is significant. And this page has you start thinking about what's coming next and why is that important. So it's always good to go ahead and read this page. It's usually a pretty short page, so that you can start thinking about where are we going next. This is a writing process. None of the modules stand separately, individually. Everything is connected. The writing process is steps. Sometimes we go in a linear fashion, but more likely we're going to be circling forward and back, as we learn and practice this writing process.